So I started this channel last week and I've already got 66 subscribers. Like, that's amazing. Thank you all so much for the support on the first video I made and also the support on the box set videos I've made. Don't worry, I'm going to keep them coming, but I thought I'd change up the topic today. It's still going to be prog related, don't worry. But I've gotten some comments on my previous videos asking me my favourite prog albums, so I thought I'm just going to do a video about it because I want to, and I think that you'll get a bit more of an insight into my personal taste. With that being said, let's go. These albums aren't going to be in a particular order because I can think of 10 of my favourite prog albums, but I can't list them because I'll think, oh, I like that song on this album, but I like that song on this album, and then it'll just get too confusing. So I'm just going to do it 10 albums. So the first album we have is some modern day prog, is Dream Theater's Black Clouds and Silver Linings. Now, before the lockdown, I was actually able to see Dream Theater in early February, and if you get the chance, go and see them. Even if you don't know much about them, just go and see them. They're an incredible live band, incredible musicians. I guarantee most people watching this video will probably know or heard of Dream Theater. But my favourite track on this album is The Count of Tuscany, which is like an 18-minute long epic, and it tells a story. And I'm not going to say the story because I'll leave you to determine that. But they actually played A Nightmare to Remember when I saw them live. But this is an incredible album. If you haven't listened to Dream Theater already, I think you should check them out. Some great modern day prog. Next, more modern day prog / psychedelic. We have Tool's Lateralus, which came out in the early 2000s. And again, you may or may not know Tool. They released an album recently called Fear Inoculum, which is a brilliant album, but this is my personal favourite album of theirs. My favourite track is Reflection, or the actual song Lateralus, that most people know Schism. An incredible bass line. As a bass player myself, I've actually managed to learn it. But this album is amazing from start to finish. It's very trippy, more on the psychedelic side than the prog side. The prog elements come through the longer songs, and you can hear a lot of King Crimson in their music. And Adam Jones is actually very, very much influenced by Robert Fripp. So if you like King Crimson, check out Tool. I discovered them about a year and a half ago, and I didn't regret it. They were my top artists of the year, and I will love them, and I will be very excited when they do a UK tour, because I believe that they did play a UK show, but it was at a festival and I was doing my exams, so I wasn't able to go, sadly. But when they come back round and when these quarantines are lifted, I'm hoping to see Tool live. Next, we have Hemispheres by Rush. Now, it took me a while to determine which Rush album I was going to choose, but I chose Hemispheres because it is probably my favourite, tied with 2112, but this one has the glorious La Villa Strangiato. Please excuse my pronunciation, but that song is absolutely incredible. Really shows off the talent of this band. And I watched a Rush documentary recently, and someone pointed out, someone in the documentary, how they have such a big sound for a three-piece band, and I couldn't agree more. For a three-piece band, they have such an amazing sound, such a recognisable sound as well, and the vocals tied in with the drum work and the guitar work and the bass work makes for an amazing album. Favourite track? Say The Trees. I love the song to bits. I love the acoustic beginning, going into a more rocky feel, and that's what I really like about Rush, is that they kind of combine prog and hard rock of the 70s, and that they hit the nail on the head with that one. Number 6, Close to the Edge by Yes. Now, I could go on for days about how much I love this album, and I won't, because I'm sure you have better things to do, but this album really got me into Yes, and really got me into prog as a whole. I mean, the first track was one of my introductions to prog, 18-minute long song, and it just blew me away. Time went like that. It was just amazing, and I'm sure that many of you will agree with me. It's everything about this album is, I'm at loss for words because I am very heavily inspired by this album, by this band as a whole, and I'm actually hoping to be seeing them in May if we're out of lockdown in Liverpool, because their London show sold out. An album that's very, very high up in my top albums of all time. My favourite track, I'm gonna have to say the track Close to the Edge, because that really, really got me into prog properly. Number 5, we have Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield, another album I could go on for days about. Just the fact that it's one man playing all these instruments, overdubbed all these instruments, just goes very highly in my ranking, because especially the age that he was when he made this album. Like, I'm 18 now and he was around the same age, and just thinking that, well, there was someone before me who was able to make a masterpiece being the same age as I am. And it's so iconic, not only the album cover, but the intro to the album itself, and some amazing instrumentals. I could listen to this album any day, in any mood, and I would love it nonetheless. Next album, and I have mentioned this album before in my previous videos about how much I love this album. Now, another album that got me into prog was Nursery, and again, the musicianship will always amaze me. The live performances that I've watched from the time of the release of the album, amazing. Favourite track, Musical Box and Seven Stones, both amazing tracks. Another Yes album, Fragile. Now, it was a tough pick because I was going to either pick this or Relayer, but I picked this one because I listened to it very recently. We got a copy of it that was on 200-gram audiophile quality vinyl, and re-listening to this, I just thought this has to be in this list. Like, every track on this album is brilliant. It's definitely an album I would give to someone who's just getting into prog, because, I mean, everyone knows Roundabout pretty much. So, listening to the rest of the album, I reckon this is a very good album to start off someone's prog journey. My favourite tracks, Mood for a Day. That is my favourite song. Or Heart of the Sunrise. Those two are my favourite tracks on this album. Another album that I've talked a lot about and I will never stop talking about is Red by King Crimson. Probably in my top 5 albums of all time, just in general. Purely, again, musicianship, spot on. Spot on with the Starless is one of the greatest tracks ever written in my personal opinion. Again, I wanted to put in another King Crimson album into this list. This is one of my favourite albums of all time, and as I said, favourite tracks, Starless and probably Fallen Angel as well, but the title track, really a good kickoff to an album. It's the album that got me into King Crimson, and just the intro really hooked me. And as soon as I heard the beginning of Starless, I was like, I'm in for a real treat, because this already sounds amazing. Next, yet another Genesis album, we have Selling England by the Pound. Heard this again recently, and after I crawled out of my cave of just listening to Nursery Crime, I decided to listen to some of their other stuff, and yes. Again, kicks off with one of my favourite songs of all time, and just flows so well. You know, this album, I don't know how to describe. It's definitely another album I'd give to someone if they want to get into prog, because of it's not too challenging for someone. That's my opinion, but that's coming from a prog nerd. It's just musicianship. You know, you gotta be a good musician to be in a prog band, and I'm really struggling to find things to say because I adore this album so much. Favourite tracks, Dancing with the Moonlit Night, first track on the album, I recommend. I'm actually wearing a Genesis shirt today, except it's a Trick of the Tail shirt. But it's still a Genesis shirt. Last but not least, we had to include some Emerson, Lake and Palmer in this list. We have Tarkus. I was trying to pick which ELP album to put in this list, and it was a toss-up between the first album, the self-titled trilogy, and this. But I picked this one in the end because I've listened to it the most times. It is probably my favourite. Again, such a solid start, musicianship, again, such a big sound for a three-piece band. Incredible musicianship. It was my dad that got me into this album. I remember the first time I heard it, I was doing some coursework, and I just had to stop working for a moment because I was like, this is amazing. And then I took a walk and listened to the whole thing, came back and finished off my work, and it was so good that I went home and I re-listened to it again. I decided to buy it on vinyl because I was like, I need to hear this album on vinyl. Favourite tracks? Every single track on this album is amazing in its own way. I cannot possibly pick a favourite. That was my 10 favourite prog albums list. I apologise if it was quite all over the place because I'm not very good at explaining, but in my head I'm good at explaining. I can't actually project it. I hope I got my point across, and if you liked this video, I could probably do another one. I've got 10 other albums that I could put in this list. So I had an idea for a video. It was my record collection. Now, in my room I've got quite a lot of albums, and it would definitely have to be a multiple video series because each shelf is full of albums. If that's something you're interested in, I could do that. I could do like A to E and carry on down the alphabet. But I have got some more box set videos lined up. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for the support recently, and I will be uploading another video in the next couple of days, so stay tuned. And yeah, peace.